Was the SNP MP Philippa Whitford. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So according to Alistair Jack there, you do not have a mandate for a second independence referendum.
Well, according to Alistair, no matter what we would do, we wouldn't have a mandate for a second independence referendum. I mean, basically, the UK, 55% of Scottish voters voted to stay in. Simply doesn't exist. I mean, the landscape has changed utterly, and to say, as Jackson Carlaw does, that it would be the mid-2050s before Scotland could make a choice again is just absolutely indefensible.
That's on the basis that it was described by Nicola Sturgeon, though, as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Well, the phrase was used as a warning and, frankly, not a promise. And, frankly, it was a correct warning. I mean, we heard Jeremy Corbyn describe this as a once-in-a-generation election. I mean, I don't think he was suggesting we shouldn't have any more general elections till 2050. It's a phrase meaning make sure you don't miss your opportunity. And since that, we have had all sorts of attempts to make sure that Scotland doesn't have a choice. It's a basic principle. The claim of right, the statement made by the unionist leaders in June 2014, as you quoted the Smith Commission, canon Kenyan right, the choice lies with the people of Scotland. And the SNP won this election convincingly on put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands.
What about the timing of it? I mean, what's your sort of gut instinct on that? Would you be happy, to call a referendum if you could, with polls showing, as they seem to be, closer to a 50-50 split, maybe hoping that the campaign would increase the yes vote, or would you rather wait until the polls were suggesting a majority in favour?
Well, I don't think we can afford to wait a long time. I mean, what we have seen in Boris Johnson's Queen's speech and description of, this is what the UK will look like in 10 years' time, there will be many people in Scotland who look at that, seeing things like courts undermined, seeing Parliament undermined, seeing workers' rights moved back out of his withdrawal agreement bill, and simply won't like what they're seeing. So, to me, I would agree with the First Minister that the autumn of next year would be an appropriate time, and I think you will actually see the poll shift. This talk about 45%, it isn't a majority. Well, it excluded 16 and 17-year-olds. It excluded European citizens like my husband, who all would have a voice in a referendum. And I know people who voted for other parties last week who actually also support independence, including many Labour voters.
So what happens now? What is the process, really? If Boris Johnson says no, and he said before, not for the next 5 years, then is that realistically the time frame you will be looking at?
I don't think it's realistic for him to go on saying no for 5 years. As Andrew McIver, a former Conservative press advisor, as Andrew Mitchell said on Hard Talk, it's just indefensible. And in actual fact, he will recruit more people to independence. We've already seen the contempt shown for Scotland. Scottish Government put forward a compromise
by refusing to allow
single
one.
Market. Refusing to allow one. If he has confidence that the majority of people in Scotland still support the Union, despite us being dragged out of the EU, when very clearly people in Scotland don't want that, then he should get on with it. And if he doesn't, then he will actually be a recruiting sergeant for independence.
So what is the strategy? John Nicholson told me yesterday that he thought Boris Johnson would change his mind. Do you share that view?
Yes, I do. I think gradually it will become untenable. And I think we saw the cracks in Labour before the election, as I say, with Andrew Mitchell, former minister, and former Andrew McIver, former Tory press lead, saying you can't go on doing this. We see it in the media, we see it in the social media. It just simply will become untenable.
But he doesn't have to do anything.
No, but
he doesn't need the SNP to get what he wants through Parliament because of his majority. The next months and years will no doubt be focused very much on Brexit. So, do you accept that politically, this is not a priority for him? And I'm just wondering what you think, more than perhaps public opinion, that will change his mind and make it a priority.
Well, I would quote canon Kenyan right. If the other voice we all know so well responds by saying, we say no and we are the state, we say yes and we are the people. Public opinion will become irresistible, because what he's saying and what Alistair Jack has just said, we don't care how you vote in a general election, we don't care how you vote in Holyrood, we will continue to ignore you. Scotland doesn't matter. If they believed in the Union, they could have accepted the Scottish Government compromise of allowing Scotland and Northern Ireland to leave the EU but stay in the single market and customs union. Okay. They threw that out in a matter of weeks. It's them that have destroyed the Union.